This episode of World Wellness Education is made possible by a production grant from the Milhorn Law Firm.
We at the Milhorn Law Firm believe that important decisions and planning should not be put on hold. These planning decisions affect not only you, but your children and heirs. My name is Eric Milhorn. I'm one of 7 attorneys here at the Milhorn Law Firm. We've been very fortunate. We've been able to serve the Central Florida area for a period of over 20 years. All the attorneys at the Milhorn Law Firm live in this area and are proud to call this area our home.
The Milhorn Law Firm, the law firm you know and trust.
Hi, I'm Tracy Brosman, co-founder of World Wellness Education, a community forum to educate, encourage, and inspire a better way of life. We commonly face day-to-day challenges of stress, lack of exercise, and poor eating habits. But with the right approach, we can find freedom, wake up each morning feeling healthy, focused, and ready to take on the day. Together, we can make a difference, one story at a time. Have you ever felt so tired that you did not know how you were going to make it through the day? Now imagine feeling this way every single day for months or even years. If you are one of the 500,000 Americans who experience exhaustion for a significant length of time, then you will want to stay tuned. Our guest today, Bridget Lowe Stringfellow, led an active lifestyle until continuous feelings of fatigue plagued her daily existence. She will share with us how she reclaimed her energy and what has brought her back to living a vibrant life. Welcome, Bridget.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you so much for being here to share your story with us.
It's nice to be here.
So let's start, Bridget, with what type of feelings were you having? I mentioned exhaustion, but tell us about a day in your life.
I've always been into exercise, and so I taught aerobics and yoga for many years. And I would wake up, and it's a slow process, but it's all of a sudden, my joints started hurting, and then I would just not have any energy. And then people would come to class. I taught out of my home for many years, and I would, I'd be excited before, and then I'd be like going, I hope nobody comes.
Oh, wow.
I remember one time laying in bed and said, what is going on? Every joint in my body hurts, and being into the body as much as I've always been, so it was a huge, what is going on? I started noticing that foods would affect me. Just sitting at the computer, I would just nod, and I'd be going, something's not right. And then it takes a while, and then awareness would come in, wow, I just ate a sandwich, Okay. And so it was the breads, and I've never been a big pasta eater, but I loved breads. But I got healthy breads. I'd get Ezekiel, sprouted grain breads, right, and the bagels, and you'd have a nice bagel in the morning. I love that, love the breads. And but it started making me, and I didn't feel it in my belly, but I'd just be exhausted.
Were you achy all day, every day?
I would have to teach, and people would come, and then I'd feel better.
And how long did that go on for?
Probably a year as it evolved,
Wow.
Yeah. So, it starts small, and then all of a sudden it's in your face, and so I'm sure probably about a good year.
Did you start to cut back on your exercise classes, or
did
you?
I mean, I just stopped. So when I started getting into yoga after aerobics, I was doing a very strong yoga. Okay. Ashtanga is my background in yoga. So that's
and what's Ashtanga?
Ashtanga is a strong yoga. It's they say that the young warriors would do this yoga before they went out to fight.
Okay.
So it's a strong yoga.
Is it big on strengthening everything?
Yeah, and yoga is not about strength, but it's about building this internal strength. Yeah, right. And it's more of a flow.
Okay.
There's 2 types of yoga, and then all these yogas have branched out from it. So you've got Ashtanga and Iyengar.
Okay.
And a great story is Ashtanga, Batabi Joyce, who is the man that everybody followed with Ashtanga, his teacher, he was a little fat guy. And his teacher was like, you need a fiery yoga. So he taught him Ashtanga. Where Iyengar was this skinny, fiery little man, and he's like, you need a calming yoga. So he taught him Iyengar.
Oh.
So Iyengar yoga is more of, you hold your postures. It's very meticulous on, your alignment.
Right.
So it's more of a, it's not that it's not hard, and it's just that it's a different way, where Ashtanga, you flow.
Okay.
You take 5 breaths between every posture and you go to the next. It's a lot of chaturangas, which is a push-up. It's a lot of down dog, up dogs. You know, it's a series that you follow. Yeah.
So you went from the aerobics to the yoga,
yeah,
thinking that maybe that would help you a little bit too, or was that just where your interest lied?
That's where I fell into. But then I started realizing it was. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was getting tired. I didn't have the strength, and it was.
And you're teaching it,
yeah.
So you have to have the strength to make it through, right?
Right. And it was hurting me. It was too much, you know.
Okay.
So then I started backing off as far as doing as much as I'm teaching, you know. So I started just more teaching and letting them do it, yeah. Which you need to do that anyway when you're a teacher.
Right.
But so then I just started noticing that I didn't have the energy, and I didn't want to. I didn't want the people to come to class. I didn't. You know, I was just like, you know, I didn't want to teach it. I just, yeah. And
well, and that's got to be scary too, because you've been teaching it all your life.
Yeah.
You've been fairly healthy,
Yes.
I'm assuming, up until then.
Yes, I was always very strong. I've always been very strong.
And then all of a sudden you're feeling achy and weak.
Yes, yes.
And tired.
And no zest for life. No, you know, you don't want to go out there and make it happen. You know, it's just like, and there was a time that I could have just slept. I mean, I would wake up and I felt, I was like, I could just sleep more. I don't want to get up. You know, so I definitely had a time of I just couldn't, if I could have stayed in bed, I would have. And times I did, you know, and just slept all day. And I'm like, what is going on? Yeah.
Well, did you notice anything other than bread? You said you started noticing the foods. Was there any other type of food?
Well, crap food, you know, like
processed
the chips. Yeah, you know, you think you need salt or chips and you want that crunchy and you eat too much, eating too much, eating, you know, processed foods. You know, the crackers, that I loved crackers and chips and all that, and cheese and, you know.
So all of that was starting to affect you.
Yep. And then wine, you know, drinking. You know, so I mean, you're 21, and then you become 35 and 40, and you're like, it just doesn't serve you anymore. You know, it really affects you. And so I had to even get away from friends that were drinking and partying too much, because it's like I could feel it. I would feel dizzy. I just couldn't handle the drinking like I could when I was younger. You know. Wow. And yeah, so I did separate myself from friends. And not that we're not friends anymore, but you know, now and then
maybe you just didn't hang out as often or do the same things.
Yeah, and then there became a time where I could go out and I could drink water and I'd be fine. But at first, if you're used to always having a glass of wine or a drink in your hand, you know, and you're like, you feel like you have to do that to be with the group, you know. And so, so that was interesting, but it was empowering to see after I got through that place where then I could be out with them, and then I didn't have to have. And maybe I'd have one drink and then I'd drink soda water. Right. You know, and that helped me. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, did you see a doctor during this time frame?
You know, I didn't.
Wow.
But I've never been one to be big into doctors.
Okay.
And my mother wasn't either. So that's been my journey too. My mother's all about your body can heal itself. She was raised that way. So that's been, again, my journey. I did have, my mother passed in 2001, and we were best friends. And right before that, I divorced after 19 years of marriage. So that was 2 big hits.
Lots of stress.
Yes. And I created a thing on my ovary, and they called it an endometrioma. You know, and I was sick for like a week, and I had fever, and I couldn't walk almost because it inhibited me walking. And that's when my mom was getting sick. And it's interesting how daughters are connected to their mothers, and then ovaries are all about your mother. And so I had this thing, and I had to get on antibiotics for about a week, and maybe 2 weeks. And then he said, you need to go see somebody, and I did, and he wanted to get it cut out. He's like, it's an endometrioma, it's not going to go away, and you need to get it cut out. Well, this was still when my mom was sick, and then she passed, and I didn't do anything. And after she passed, I went back to a doctor to see what was going on, and it had shrunk. And he said, it's just about a pea now, you know, and he was like, let's just watch it. And that's what we did, and it's gone. And so I never did do anything. And so I've had a couple of incidences like that where I have, you know, and I'm not saying doctors aren't good, because they are, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we need them.
But your journey has led you to allowing your body to heal a little bit more by itself.
Yes, and it does. And one tip, if I can give any tip, is to give your body time, because it's not going to heal as quickly as if you take medicine. You know, and medicine may make you feel better for a while, but I think that then you have the effect of what the medicine is doing, also the other side effect, you know.
So what were you doing to help give your body what it needed to heal? Because that's part of it, right? Making sure that we have enough sleep.
Absolutely.
Which you were, obviously your body was saying it needed a lot of sleep.
Yes, and I'm blessed that I could do that.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like I had something, a child or a job that I had to get up and go to and really stress my body out even more.
How did you handle the stress, the emotional stress of going through that? Because that must have been watching yourself deteriorate and not be able to do the things that you love to do, number one, and
Right.
number two, that were your income
Yes.
and your livelihood.
Yeah.
How did you handle that?
You know, I listen to a lot of spiritual healers and a lot of self-help people, and I read the books, and I've always been attracted to that. So that helped me to have faith and trust that, you know, one of the books, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, he said, sometimes the universe gives us time to be quiet, you know, and that sometimes we're so going in life that this was a time for me to rest and to trust that and know that I'll come out on the other side, you know, and that's scary for a lot of us, you know,
Yeah.
that space of...
Because you worry that you may not come out on the other side, okay?
Yeah, and just the unknown of, yeah, am I going to come out of this? Am I going to, you know, but to trust it and know, yeah, I am. My body needs rest. And I was such a big exerciser and go-getter, and, you know, it's like, you know, you need to rest. And so I just would read the books and just had this trust and faith, and not to say that I didn't get sad and scared, but I just, again, underneath all of that, I've always had this faith that
a huge positive outlook.
yeah, wherever it goes, I'm gonna be okay.
Wonderful.
You know? Yeah.
What else did you do to help pull yourself out, to give your body what it needed?
So then I think that's when the raw food came into
Okay.
my life, and it was crazy how it came in, and raw food is such a different world. It's its own world. Because we're so used to pulling out that pan and putting the oil in and cutting up the onion and having the smell and
make it mushy and soft,
yes,
right?
Yes, it's true. And you know that we have a salad, you know, little salad, but we're eating the, you know, the other stuff that's cooked. And I love cooked food, and
The first time somebody mentioned raw food to me, I'm like, okay, I'm not eating salads for the rest of my life. Forget that.
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about,
yes,
but that's
celery,
not for
carrots,
me, right?
Sticks. Yeah, you know, you think exactly. And the first thing that came to me were the desserts, because it was like, what do you mean you can make an apple pie? Could have apple pie with breakfast, you know? And I was so intrigued with that, and I was like, what? You can make an apple? You can make crust out of dates and nuts, and that's your crust? I'm like, crazy, you know? And so that's kind of how I first got into it. You know?
Well, and I can tell you, Nina, Bridget, I've had your apple pie. And you work with Nina, so that's why I was just thinking that.
Yes.
But I've had your apple pie, and it is phenomenal.
It is so good. And again, it's just raw apples, raw almonds, raw dates, kind of put together in a way that, and you're like, and you can have it for breakfast. Now, you do have dates in it, and dates are sweet, but they're a natural sweetness, you know, and they come off a tree, you know, and so...
everything in balance, right?
Yeah, you do have to be careful of but again, if you're getting off the Snickers bars and the chocolate cakes that we would eat, you know, and the cupcakes, and then it's a no-brainer. That's the way to go. And it satisfies you, and you don't feel depleted, and you don't feel like you have to go out there and still get something else, you know.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing with so many snacks, is that you feel like you have to continue eating them. So that's nice that it does satisfy you more, so you don't feel like you have to keep on eating and eating and eating.
It's true. And
what about like snacks during the holidays and things like that? Can you find raw desserts?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to go back to something you just said, but yeah, so you know, when I first got into it, I just started, I found people on the internet. The internet's amazing. So I found, you know, Matt Monarch and Kevin Gianni and all these people that are out there giving us great information that you can find on the internet. And I just started following them, and then I started getting the ebooks and the cookbooks, and so I just got a ton of cookbooks. And I've made a lot of stuff that tastes like crap. You know, so I've definitely made a lot of stuff that tastes like cardboard, you know, and stuff. But when you get into it, like one thing that I'm making right now that is such a hit is kale chips. And that's such a great snack. It's like a potato chip, but it's kale that's been dehydrated with this cashew dressing on it. That's just amazing, that helps satisfy. So you can have a bag of kale chips that helps satisfy that craving of needing a chip for a snack and stuff. You can also make your own granola that's, again, not been cooked and not full of sugar and stuff, you know, so.
Yes, and I do that a lot.
Yes.
Which is a great way.
Yes. And just eating whole foods. So snacks, lots of times I have a bag of apples with me. So if I get hungry, if I am prepared, if I can grab an apple and stick it in my mouth and start eating it, then at least I won't go crazy. You know, it'll hold me over till I can get something good.
Did you find that as you started eating differently and started looking at whole foods and not cooking your food as often, that your taste buds changed?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
And what's interesting is I would do raw foods for a while, and then I'd have that hamburger craving, you know, and I wanted that cheeseburger and French fries, and I would go get it, and I would eat it, and I would, you know, I'd eat it down, and then I'd feel bad.
Oh.
You know, so every time you would, and then I was like, okay, no, I get the message, that didn't feel good, and, you know, I feel stuffed, and I feel heavy, and I feel lethargic. And then you'd go back and eat raw foods, and what's cool about raw foods is you don't eat too much. I've never, you know, maybe on the sweets you might eat, but it truly, something about raw food, your body says that's enough, and you just automatically stop. And that's what's been really cool. It's interesting.
Well, they've shown that there's a lot of things in our processed foods that actually, they've done tests, and that's why they pay the scientists so much money to create those foods, because they are addictive.
Yes. Yes, so even the crackers that I make that are dehydrated or whatever, you know, you don't want that many. You don't want that many.
You
even
just
the
eat
raw,
till you're satisfied and full?
Yeah, the raw cheese that I make, it's, you know.
You make raw cheese?
Yeah, it's fermented cashews.
Okay.
So you do cashews and you ferment them, and you put like a red bell pepper and some nutritional yeast to make it taste cheesy, and some salt, and yeah, it resembles cheese. You put it on that cracker, and you can eat maybe 2. And you're like, that's all I need.
Well, and I have to tell you, you made pizza one day, and I would not have I would have said, nah, that's okay. Can't taste that good.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, we, you know, I never knew that I was, you know, had a talent with cooking. I mean, I've always cooked, and I love to cook, and I love to create, and I love to serve, and, but it's been interesting to see how much people are loving our foods, yeah.
So you became a raw food chef.
Yeah.
And you were doing it for yourself.
You know, I did it for myself, and this was still when I had people coming to my home for yoga, and so I would get so excited, like I'd make this dehydrated cracker, and I'd be like, okay, y'all, come in here, you gotta taste this. So my students were always my little guinea pigs, and I'm like, you know, do you like this? You know, am I crazy, or do you like this too? You know, and they'd be going, oh my gosh, and so then I had people say, would you cook for me? So then I started making meals for my people that came to my class, and I had a lot of people that had food sensitivities and that you know, couldn't do gluten and stuff, and so started making foods for them. And I had a little group that I would send out an email and say, this is what I'm making this week, what do you want? And
place your order.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it's interesting how it all evolved, you know. I had no idea that's where I was going, but I had a lady in Pensacola that she was doing the same thing, and she again had to get on raw food because she was depleted and sick, and it healed her, and so she did the same thing. And I would go to her house, and because she had a big group, and go to her house and see how to make this stuff in bigger amounts.
Right.
Because at first it seems very labor intensive. But then, is it really any more different than if you made your cake and put it in the oven and it had to cook for 30 minutes to 45 minutes?
Right.
So
we've just become such a fast food society that it's a little bit different.
Yes. And that's another thing. It brings us back to taking care of ourselves. You know?
So you mentioned that she was depleted. Is that kind of what you found for yourself? Is that you didn't have the nutrients, your body didn't have what it needed to
Yes,
heal
that
and be
cheeseburger and
healthy?
French fries is not giving it to us. You know, I mean, the meat is the protein, but we eat way too much meat. We don't need that much, and we don't get the vitamins and nutrients and minerals like we can get from fresh kale, fresh spinach. You know, all the fresh vegetables.
Now, what is, and we've talked about it on the show before, but for those who may have not seen it, what is the difference between raw and cooked food? Why is raw food?
The enzymes.
Okay.
So they say that when you cook foods, it cooks out the enzymes. Our bodies have enzymes in it, and food has enzymes in it. The more that we can let our bodies use the enzymes that are in the food, the less it has to take from our bodies, and then the enzymes in our bodies can do other things. So that's why raw food, it's less taxing on your body. So your body, the digestion, everything, it just goes through your body easier because doesn't have to sit there, doesn't have to figure it out, doesn't have to kick in enzymes from our body to help digest it. And that's where the healing comes in. That's where we have more energy then. Because think about it, when you eat Thanksgiving dinner, everybody's laying on the couch,
right?
You know, because our body has to digest. When you eat raw food, you feel you have energy. You're just like, you're lighter, you lose weight, you know, you just have more energy, and you're like, wow, you know, I feel like going out and exercising, you know, it's crazy, or taking a walk, or it's amazing.
Now, do you eat 100% raw food?
I don't, but I have. I did for 2 years when I was sick.
100%?
Well, let me say 80.
Okay.
80 to 100. So I did 100 for a little while, and then I would do like sauteed kale.
Okay.
Or, and I would even every once in a while have an egg. You know, I think, and for me, everybody's different. There's no one right way for anybody. So for me, I needed a little protein. I'm a O blood type, and I just think my body needed a little bit, but you don't, what I found is you don't need that much. You know, a little bit goes a long way. You know, so I can eat, I eat beef. I eat grass-fed beef. I eat clean eggs. You know, it's all about back to how it should be.
So when you say clean eggs, what do you mean by
Happy
that?
chickens that are out on the pasture and eating what they're supposed to be eating. They're not in a cage, you know.
Okay.
And so that
probably not being fed with hormones and antibiotics.
Exactly.
And
corn and stuff, you know. So we try to find the happiest, cleanest food. That's what I mean. You know, nothing, you know, more how it used to be and how it should be. And I do believe we're going back to that. You know, I mean, my mother was always one that made dinner, and we sat down and had dinner at the table, you know. We've gotten away from that. I do believe that's coming back.
I think so too.
Yes.
I think more people are spending the time cooking and preparing foods with their family and making it a family affair.
And we have to.
I know I certainly have much more.
Yeah, and that's where the raw food kind of brings you back to that. And it's also, we have to, because the other food makes us feel bad. I mean, you go get a McDonald's, or you go out to eat and, you know, eat pasta.
And I think more and more people are becoming aware of that, of how they feel after eating certain foods. We have so many different digestive problems these days that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago. And so it makes you wonder, was it something I ate?
Yes.
Is there really something to that?
Yes.
Does the food really feed our bodies?
Yes. Yes, and it does, and it's so true. And we are what we eat, we are what we think, it's all of it.
So, well, we're running out of time, but tell me really quick, was there anything else that contributed to you getting healthy? I mean, you look like you feel great now. I'm assuming that you're not going to fall asleep right after our
if I don't go eat a piece of bread. And, you know, I do want to say, after I got off it, and I was off cooked food for a long time, now I can eat a piece of bread and it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
If I overdo it, it will.
Right.
But to go out and have a good piece of French bread, I can now. And so for those who are like, oh, I don't want to give up my bread, you can get back to it, you know.
Balance, right?
Yes. And I have to say, exercise has been huge for me, because I took off for a while, and then I came to a place where I made myself get back into teaching. and made myself get back. And I've just started doing, I do a body sculpting class, so I do weights now too.
Good.
And that has helped tremendously.
Well, Bridget, if people would like to see you or to talk to you more, how can they get a hold of you?
My email is dancingwithlife, L-I-F-E, @gmail.
Great.
So, yeah.
And they can also get your food at Living Green.
Yes, I
in
work,
Tavares, right?
Yes, Living Green Health Foods in Tavares.
Wonderful.
And,
well, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Together, we make a difference one story at a time. If you'd like to find more about World Wellness Education, visit our website at worldwellnesseducation.org. Being thankful is good for your heart. Studies have found that having a grateful attitude and a positive outlook on life has a favorable effect on your health. Dr. Dore Swarmy, head of the biological psychology at Duke University Medical Center, said, "If thankfulness were a drug, it would be the world's best-selling product with a health maintenance indication for every major organ system." There are many reasons to practice being thankful consistently. Scientists have found that people who find reasons to be grateful daily experience many health benefits, including smoother and coherent heart rhythms and a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. Being thankful can also help you have a stronger immune system, decrease your physical pain, and get a longer, more restful night's sleep. On top of the physical benefits you receive by focusing on what is going well in your life, you may also experience other benefits, including being able to handle stressful situations better, fewer feelings of sadness and depression, and a higher sense of attentiveness, alertness, and energy. To begin to feel better physically, emotionally, and mentally, try to become consciously aware of what you are thankful for in your life. You can do this by writing in a gratitude journal nightly before going to bed. Try writing something new that you are thankful for every night. As you get comfortable with this exercise, try filling up the entire page with new things you are thankful for. You might also try thinking about everything you are thankful for before you get out of bed in the morning. I also like to see how many things I can be grateful for and appreciate while performing a daily routine like brushing my teeth or taking my dogs for a walk. There are many ways you can begin to count more blessings in your life. The key is to pick what works for you and to stick with it. Some scientific studies show that people who focus on what they are grateful for every day for 1 week straight can experience the benefits of up to a 6-month period. This information is not meant to be medical advice. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the contents of this information. Instead, you should consult appropriate health professionals on any matter relating to your health and well-being. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can catch this show each week on Lakefront TV. And to find out more about World Wellness Education, check out our website at worldwellnesseducation.org. We'll see you next time.
This episode of World Wellness Education is made possible by a production grant from the Milhorn Law Firm. Have you or a loved one ever suffered an injury due to the negligence of another? Then it's time to turn to a law firm that you know and trust, one with a record of client satisfaction and integrity. Hello, my name is Ryan Milhorn, and the Milhorn Law Firm has been representing personal injury clients in the Central Florida area for over 20 years. Our attorneys live in this community and are very proud to call it home. The Milhorn Law Firm, the law firm you know and trust.